Ever come across one of those job titles that makes you go, huh, what is that? Well, wholesale merchant in computers, computer peripheral equipment, and software. Yeah, that one might just take the cake. But stick with us, because we're going deep on this one, folks. Turns out it's way more interesting than it sounds. We've been digging into RoleCatcher's career resources, and they've got the goods on this career path.
You know, what gets me about this role is that it's like the glue holding the entire tech world together.
Right, because we're not talking about someone who's just good at haggling over prices.
No, no, not at all. It's about really understanding the ins and outs of supply and demand in an industry that's constantly changing. We're talking about computers, peripherals, software, the whole nine yards.
And it's about understanding how all of those components come together as solutions for businesses, right?
Precisely. It's about being able to speak the language of both the tech whizzes and the business bigwigs. And RoleCatcher really emphasizes that this isn't a career for someone who likes things to stay the same. In fact, they quote one junior wholesale merchant who said that their passion for gaming is actually what helps them spot new trends in gaming hardware. That's someone who's not just keeping pace, they're setting the pace.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Being able to spot those market shifts before they happen, that's got to be exciting. And also a little nerve-wracking, right? Like, if I don't get this right, my company's going to miss out on the next big thing.
And that's where the competitive side of things comes in. RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from that. You're up against some stiff competition, often working with slim margins and demanding clients. They even have a whole section on how to build a portfolio that showcases your wins. Imagine being able to say to a potential employer, hey, I managed to move this much product during a global chip shortage. Now that's impressive.
Talk about a mic drop moment in an interview. That's the kind of experience that speaks for itself. But let's rewind for a second. How does someone even get their foot in the door in this industry?
Well, that's where RoleCatcher's breakdown of career stages is so helpful. They don't just give you a vague entry-level description, they give you an actual example of what that looks like so you can see how the work changes as you gain experience.
It's like getting a sneak peek behind the scenes, seeing how it all works. So you might start by assisting with orders, maybe learning the ropes of building supplier relationships, and then eventually you're managing your own client accounts, negotiating deals, building your own network.
Exactly. And by the time you reach that senior wholesale merchant level, you're basically running your own show. You're strategizing business development, you're mentoring a team. It's a pretty clear progression, but it takes constant upskilling.
And speaking of upskilling, RoleCatcher has thought of that too. They have this whole section on interview prep, and it's not your typical run-of-the-mill advice. They get into the specifics of what this particular role demands.
Oh yeah, they don't hold back on the tough questions either. One that stuck out to me was, can you tell me about a time you had to deal with an angry client who was about to lose a ton of money because a shipment was delayed? It's about thinking on your feet, finding solutions, and making sure those relationships stay strong.
Okay, so the pressure is on. It's one thing to know the specs of a product, but it's a whole other thing to navigate the human side of this business, especially when the stakes are high.
And that's where their AI tools come in, which I have to say is pretty cool. They have this thing called the RoleCatcher Copilot AI. It analyzes tons of job descriptions and helps you figure out exactly what skills you need to highlight.
Wait, seriously? It's that specific?
Yep. For example, it helped me realize that I wasn't showcasing my experience with CRM software, which is crucial for managing client relationships in this role.
That's wild. It's like having a secret decoder ring for figuring out what hiring managers are really looking for.
Exactly. It's all about working smarter, not harder. But even with the best tools, landing that dream job is just the first step. Next up, we're diving into what a typical day looks like for a wholesale merchant. And trust me, it's not for the faint of heart.
Right, bring on the chaos. From what I'm gathering, it's a delicate dance between staying ahead of the tech curve, managing those crucial relationships, and making sure the company's making money.
You got it. And one thing that RoleCatcher points out is that the work environment can be all over the place. You might be in a busy office one day, working remotely the next, or even on the road meeting clients and suppliers.
That flexibility is a huge perk for a lot of people these days. But it also takes discipline to manage your time effectively when your office could be anywhere.
For sure. And imagine the pressure when a big tech conference rolls around. Suddenly, everyone and their mother needs the latest gadget before it even hits the shelves. We're talking long hours, tight deadlines. You've got to be on your game.
It sounds intense, but for someone who thrives on that kind of energy, being at the forefront of the tech world, it's got to be a rush.
Absolutely. And that's why they emphasize that this is a career that requires constant learning. This isn't something you learn once and you're good to go. You've got to be obsessed with staying ahead of the curve, always reading up on the newest tech trends and market shifts.
I'm getting the sense that this is more than just a job. It's a whole lifestyle. Always on, always thinking about the next big deal.
You hit the nail on the head. But for those who are drawn to that fast-paced, ever-evolving world, the rewards can be huge. And I'm not just talking about the salary potential, which, by the way, RoleCatcher definitely highlights as a major plus.
Let's be real, the money is definitely a factor for a lot of us. But it's not just about the paycheck, right? It's about knowing you're playing a part in bringing these cutting-edge technologies to the world.
Exactly. It's about being part of something bigger, being at the forefront of innovation. But like any career, it's about finding the right fit. RoleCatcher does a great job of laying out both the amazing perks and the gritty realities, which is super important for anyone thinking about this path.
Let's talk about those realities for a second, because it's easy to get swept up in the excitement of high earnings and cutting-edge tech and forget about the potential downsides.
Oh, they definitely don't sugarcoat the challenges. They talk about the long hours, the pressure to meet those sales targets, and the need to be ready to adapt as the tech landscape changes, which, let's be honest, is basically every other minute in this industry.
So not for the faint of heart, but for the right person, it sounds like a crazy rewarding and potentially lucrative career.
Totally. And RoleCatcher actually gives some really solid advice on how to stand out in this competitive market. Remember that portfolio we talked about earlier? They give concrete examples of projects you can include. Imagine showcasing how you identified a gap in the market for a specific software solution.
And they connected a developer with the perfect distributor to bring it to market. That's not just salesmanship, that's vision.
Right. You're showing them you're not just an order taker, but a strategist. They also really emphasize the importance of networking
Mhm.
and not just showing up at industry events, but really engaging in online communities.
So like becoming a known expert on a forum for a specific type of tech.
Exactly. You're building credibility, establishing yourself as a thought leader in your space. That's invaluable in an industry where knowledge is king.
Okay, that's next level. So for someone just starting out, I imagine any experience in sales, especially in tech, would be a good foundation.
Absolutely. Even if it's not wholesale, understanding how to connect with customers, handle objections, close deals, those are transferable skills.
It's about proving you've got the hustle and the basic understanding of how the sales process works.
Exactly. And they emphasize that the learning never really stops, even once you land the job. Online courses, webinars, industry conferences, you've got to be like a sponge, constantly absorbing information.
Which makes sense in a field where what's new today is old news tomorrow. So we've talked about staying on top of trends, building relationships. But what are some of those core skills and knowledge areas that are essential for a wholesale merchant?
Well, their guide digs into what it really takes to thrive in this world. They put a lot of emphasis on critical thinking.
Which makes sense. You're constantly analyzing trends, figuring out the best deals, making decisions that affect the company's bottom line.
Exactly. But it's not enough to just think critically. You have to be able to communicate those thoughts effectively, especially when you're dealing with suppliers trying to get the best price and clients trying to do the same with you.
You're basically a professional negotiator, always working those angles.
Right. And that's why they also highlight active listening and reading comprehension as key skills. Being able to really understand what your clients and suppliers need, even the things they're not directly saying.
It's like being a detective, looking for clues.
Exactly. They also have this thing called monitoring, which isn't just about staring at spreadsheets. It's about evaluating your own performance, figuring out where you can improve. It's that self-awareness.
It's interesting that they put monitoring right alongside skills like reading comprehension and active listening. It's like they're saying that self-awareness and personal growth are just as important as traditional communication skills.
Right, because in a field that moves this fast, you can't just get comfortable. You have to be willing to learn new things, to adapt.
That seems to be a recurring theme with RoleCatcher, the need to be adaptable. It's not enough to just have a set of skills. You need to be a constant learner, someone who thrives in a state of change.
For sure. And when we're talking about knowledge base, it goes beyond just computers and software.
Oh, for sure. While knowing the difference between RAM and ROM is important, they also highlight the need to understand sales and marketing, customer service, even economics and accounting.
Right. It's a reminder that this is a business role. You have to be tech savvy, but you also have to understand how to sell that tech, manage a business, and deal with the financial side of things.
So it's like understanding the entire machine, not just one part of it.
Exactly. It requires this well-rounded knowledge base that covers everything from supply chain management to market analysis to building those crucial customer relationships.
Seeing the forest for the trees, as they say. It's about understanding how all these different pieces fit together to make a successful business.
Exactly. And that's what makes this career path so interesting, challenging, and potentially really, really rewarding.
And speaking of rewarding, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room: money. RoleCatcher lists high earning potential as a huge plus. But is that just a fancy way of saying you might get lucky, but there are no guarantees?
Well, there are never really any guarantees in life, right? But the earning potential in this field is definitely there. And it makes sense when you think about it. You're dealing with high-value products, complex negotiations, and a market that's constantly in flux. That kind of expertise is in high demand.
And thankfully, RoleCatcher actually gives you some hard numbers. They have salary data in their guide, which is incredibly helpful for anyone considering this path.
They do. And while the exact numbers can change depending on things like experience, location, and the company itself, even at the entry level, you have the potential to earn a good living.
That's reassuring to hear. And as you climb the ladder, gaining experience and taking on more responsibility, that earning potential only goes up, which is why they highlight the potential for growth and advancement as another big hook of this career. It's not just about finding a job, it's about finding a career with upward mobility. And based on the way they break down the career stages, it seems like there are clear opportunities for advancement within this field.
Absolutely. They highlight that progression from entry level to junior wholesale merchant, then to just plain old wholesale merchant, and then finally to senior wholesale merchant, with each stage coming with more responsibility, bigger challenges, and of course, a higher earning potential.
So it sounds like this is a career path that rewards hard work, ambition, and that willingness to be a lifelong learner. But it's not just about climbing that corporate ladder. RoleCatcher also mentions the possibility of specializing within this field, which is something that I found really interesting because it speaks to the variety of opportunities within this one career path.
Specialization can be a great way to set yourself apart, to increase your value in the job market. It's about becoming an expert in a particular niche within this world of tech wholesale.
And those niches, they can vary widely, right? You
Oh,
could
yeah.
specialize in a particular type of technology, a certain geographical market, even a specific type of client.
Exactly. And that's what makes this field so dynamic. It's not a one-size-fits-all career path. There's room to find your own lane, to become that go-to expert in your little corner of the tech world.
So for someone who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by how massive the tech industry is, specializing could be a way to narrow their focus and really hone in on what interests them most.
It's about finding your passion within a larger field and becoming the person everyone goes to for that specific thing.
That's a great point. It's not just about selling, it's about becoming a trusted advisor, someone who truly understands the needs of both the people buying the technology and the people making it.
And that kind of expertise is priceless. So while the RoleCatcher Guide gives a great overview of what it means to be a wholesale merchant, it's really just the beginning.
It's a launchpad for further exploration, for deeper research, and thankfully, RoleCatcher has the resources you need to do just that. They've got career guides, interview prep materials, industry insights, you name it.
It's like having a one-stop shop for your entire career development journey. But let's get back to those essential skills and knowledge areas that are so crucial for a wholesale merchant in this specific field.
Right. We talked about building relationships and staying on top of tech trends, but what other skills are going to set someone up for success?
Their guide dives into some really important abilities for thriving in this world. One, they stress, is critical thinking.
Which makes total sense. You're constantly looking at market trends, analyzing deals, making strategic decisions that affect the bottom line.
Exactly. But it's not just about thinking critically, it's about communicating those thoughts effectively, especially when you're negotiating with suppliers who are trying to get the best deal for themselves and clients trying to do the same.
Right, it's this constant back and forth.
Totally. And that's why they also highlight active listening and reading comprehension as crucial skills. Being able to truly understand your clients' and suppliers' needs, reading between the lines to figure out what they really want.
It's about connecting the dots, seeing the big picture, understanding how everything fits together in this big, complicated tech ecosystem.
Exactly. They also highlight this thing called monitoring. And it's not just about watching spreadsheets, it's about being able to assess your own performance, identify your weaknesses, and figure out ways to improve.
It's interesting that they list monitoring right alongside skills like reading comprehension and active listening. It's
Yeah.
like they're saying that self-awareness and a commitment to personal growth are just as important as those more traditional communication skills.
Oh, absolutely. In a field this dynamic and fast-paced, you can't afford to get complacent. You have to be willing to learn, adapt, and push yourself outside of your comfort zone.
That seems to be a common thread we've seen throughout RoleCatcher's guide, the need to be adaptable. It's not just about having a static set of skills, it's about being a continuous learner, someone who thrives on the challenge of a constantly changing landscape.
You got it. And speaking of changing landscapes, let's talk about the actual knowledge base needed for this career path, because it's not just about understanding computers and software.
Right. While knowing your RAM from your ROM is important, they highlight that you also need a good grasp on sales and marketing, customer service, administration, even economics and accounting.
Exactly. At its core, it's a business role. Yes, you need to know your tech, but you also need to know how to sell that tech, manage a business, and deal with all the financial stuff that comes with it.
It's about understanding how the entire machine works, not just the individual part.
Precisely. It takes a well-rounded knowledge base that encompasses everything from supply chains and market analysis to building those all-important customer relationships.
It's about being able to see the forest for the trees, understanding how all these different elements work together to create a successful business.
Exactly. And that's what makes this career path so fascinating, so challenging, and potentially so incredibly rewarding.
And speaking of rewarding, I think it's time we talked about everyone's favorite subject, money. RoleCatcher lists high earning potential as a major pro for this career path. But is that just a fancy way of saying, hey, you might strike it rich, but there are no guarantees?
Well, there are never any guarantees in life, are there? But the earning potential in this field is undeniable. And it makes sense when you think about it. You're dealing with high-value products, complex negotiations, and a constantly evolving market. That kind of expertise is valuable. It's sought after.
And they even provide some actual salary data in their guide, which is so helpful for anyone who is seriously considering this career path.
They do. And while those specific numbers can change depending on your experience level, your location, the size of the company you work for, even at that entry level, you're looking at the potential to make a good living.
That's great to hear. And as you progress, gaining experience, taking on more responsibility, that earning potential just keeps climbing. They really emphasize that potential for growth and advancement as a major plus. It's not just about finding a job, it's about finding a career with upward mobility. And it sounds like there are some pretty clear paths for advancement within the wholesale merchant field.
Oh, absolutely. They highlight that progression, moving from entry level to junior wholesale merchant, then to wholesale merchant, and ultimately to that senior wholesale merchant position. And with each step up, you're taking on more responsibility, facing bigger challenges, and of course, getting compensated accordingly.
So it sounds like this is a career path that rewards hard work, a drive to constantly learn, and the ambition to keep growing. But it's not just about climbing that corporate ladder. RoleCatcher also talks about the possibility of specializing within this field, which I thought was really interesting because it highlights that even within this one job title, there's a lot of room for variety.
Specialization is a great way to further your career and boost your value in the marketplace. It lets you become a real expert in a specific niche within the tech wholesale world.
And those niches, as we said before, they can be pretty diverse. You can focus on a specific type of tech, a particular geographic market, even cater to a specific type of client.
Exactly. And that's what makes this field so dynamic. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. You have the flexibility to carve out your own space, become that recognized expert in your own little corner of the tech world.
So for someone who might be feeling a little overwhelmed by the sheer vastness of the tech industry, specializing could be a good way to narrow their focus and really dive deep into a specific area they're passionate about.
It's about finding your passion within a larger field and owning it.
That's a great way to put it. It's not just about selling tech. It's about being a trusted advisor, a consultant who truly understands the needs of both the people buying the technology and the people who are creating it.
And that, my friend, is a very valuable skill set to have. So while the RoleCatcher Guide gives you this comprehensive overview of what it means to be a wholesale merchant, It's really just a jumping off point.
It's that initial spark to ignite your own exploration and research. And the good news is, RoleCatcher has the tools and resources to help you every step of the way.
They really do. From career guides and interview prep to industry insights and salary data, it's all there. It's like having a one-stop shop for all things career development. But for now, let's circle back to those key skills and knowledge areas that are essential for a wholesale merchant in the tech world.
Right. We've talked about building relationships and staying on top of tech trends, but what else is going to set someone up for success in this role?
Well, their guide really digs into the specific abilities you need to thrive in this environment. And one thing they emphasize is the importance of critical thinking.
Which makes sense. You're constantly analyzing market trends, evaluating deals, making decisions that could make or break the company's bottom line.
Exactly. But it's not enough to just think critically. You also have to be able to communicate those thoughts effectively, especially when you're dealing with suppliers who are trying to get the best deal for themselves and clients who are trying to do the same from you.
It's a constant balancing act, isn't it?
It really is, and that's why they highlight active listening and reading comprehension as being absolutely crucial in this role. It's about being able to truly understand what your clients and suppliers need, reading between the lines, picking up on those things they might not be saying directly.
It's like you're a detective, piecing together clues.
Exactly. They also have this interesting concept they call monitoring, and it's not just about staring at spreadsheets. It's about being able to assess your own performance, figure out your weaknesses, and always be looking for ways to improve.
It's interesting that they include monitoring alongside skills like reading comprehension and active listening. Is that they're saying that self-awareness and personal growth are just as important as those more traditional communication skills.
You're right, because in a field that's as dynamic and fast-paced as tech, you can't get too comfortable. You have to be willing to constantly adapt, learn new things, and push yourself outside your comfort zone.
That's a recurring theme we've seen with the RoleCatcher adaptability. It's not enough to have a fixed skill set. You have to be a lifelong learner, someone who thrives in a constant state of change.
Exactly. And speaking of change, let's talk about the knowledge base needed for this career path, because it goes way beyond just understanding computers and software.
Right, it's about understanding the business side of things, too.
Right. While knowing your RAM from your ROM is essential, they highlight that you need a firm grasp on sales and marketing, customer service, administration, even economics and accounting.
It's a good reminder that this is ultimately a business role. You need that tech knowledge, but you also need to know how to sell that tech, manage a business, and deal with all the financial aspects that come with it. It's about seeing the whole picture, how each part contributes to the overall success.
Exactly. It requires a well-rounded understanding of everything from supply chain management to market analysis to, of course, building those all-important customer relationships.
So it's about seeing the forest for the trees, understanding how everything works together to make a successful business.
Precisely. And that's what makes this career path so interesting, challenging, and potentially incredibly rewarding.
And speaking of rewarding, I think it's time we talk about everyone's favorite topic, money. RoleCatcher lists high earning potential as a major pro for this career path. But is that just a fancy way of saying you might get lucky, but there are no guarantees?
Well, there are never really any guarantees in life, are there? But the earning potential in this field is definitely there. And it makes sense when you think about it. You're dealing with high-value products, negotiating complex deals, and working in a market that's constantly in flux. That kind of expertise doesn't come cheap.
And RoleCatcher actually backs that up with some cold, hard data. They provide actual salary data in their guide, which is incredibly helpful for anyone seriously considering this career path.
They do. And while the exact figures can vary based on your experience, location, and the specific company you're looking at, even at the entry level, there's potential to earn a good living.
That's good to hear. And as you progress through the ranks, gaining more experience and taking on more responsibilities, that earning potential just keeps growing. They really emphasize the potential for growth and advancement as a major plus. It's not just about finding a job, it's about finding a career path with upward mobility. And it seems like there are some very clear pathways for advancement within this field.
Absolutely. They highlight that progression very clearly. Starting at the entry level, moving up to junior wholesale merchant, then to wholesale merchant, and eventually reaching that senior wholesale merchant level. And each step up comes with more responsibility, bigger challenges, and of course, higher earning potential.
So it sounds like a career path that rewards ambition, hard work, and that commitment to continuous learning. But it's not just about climbing the corporate ladder. RoleCatcher also mentions the possibility of specializing within the field, which I found really interesting. It speaks to the diversity of opportunities within this one job title.
Specialization is a great way to take your career even further, to increase your value in the marketplace. It's about becoming a true expert in a particular area within this world of tech wholesale.
And as we've discussed, those niches can be quite diverse. You could specialize in a particular type of technology, focus on a specific geographic market, or even cater to a specific type of client.
You got it. And that's what makes this field so dynamic. It's not one size fits all. There's room for you to find your own lane, to become that recognized expert in your specific area of the tech world.
So, for someone who might be feeling a little overwhelmed by how massive and complex the tech industry is, specializing could be a way to narrow down their focus and hone in on a specific area they're passionate about.
It's about finding what truly excites you within this larger field and then owning it.
That's a great way to put it. It's not just about selling computers and software. It's about being a trusted advisor, someone who truly understands the needs of both the people buying the technology and the people who are creating it.
And that kind of expertise is incredibly valuable. So while the RoleCatcher Guide gives you this comprehensive overview of what it means to be a wholesale merchant, it's really just the jumping off point.
It's that initial spark to ignite your own research and exploration. And the great thing is, RoleCatcher has tons of resources to support you on that journey, whether it's career guides, interview prep materials, industry insights, or salary data. It's all there. They're like a one-stop shop for all things career development. But for now, let's get back to those core skills and knowledge areas that are so crucial for a wholesale merchant.
Right, because it's one thing to have a general idea, but it's another to know the specifics.
Exactly. So we've talked about the importance of building strong relationships and staying on top of those ever-changing tech trends. But what else is going to set someone up for success in this role?
Well, their guide really digs into the specific abilities that are crucial for thriving in this environment. And one that they emphasize is critical thinking.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about it. You're analyzing market trends, evaluating potential deals, making strategic decisions that could affect a company's bottom line.
Right, but it's not enough to just think critically. You have to be able to communicate those thoughts effectively, especially when you're going back and forth between suppliers who are trying to get the best price for their products and clients who are trying to do the same from you.
It's a constant negotiation.
It really is. And that's why they also highlight active listening and reading comprehension as essential skills, being able to truly understand the needs of both your clients and your suppliers, picking up on those cues they might not be saying out loud.
It's about reading between the lines, right?
Well,
Being a bit of a detective.
exactly. They also have this interesting concept called monitoring, and it's not just about staring at spreadsheets all day. It's about being able to assess your own performance, figure out where you might have some weaknesses, and then find ways to improve.
It's interesting that they put monitoring right alongside skills like reading comprehension and active listening. It's like they're saying that self-awareness and a commitment to personal growth are just as crucial as those more traditional communication skills.
Absolutely. In a field as fast-paced and constantly changing as tech, you can't afford to rest on your laurels. You have to be willing to constantly learn new things, adapt to new situations, and push yourself outside of your comfort zone.
That seems to be a recurring theme with RoleCatcher, the importance of adaptability. It's not enough to just have a set of skills. You need to be a lifelong learner who embraces change and thrives in that environment.
Exactly. And speaking of a changing landscape, let's talk about the actual knowledge base that's needed for this career path, because it goes beyond just understanding computers and software.
Right. It's not just about knowing how to use the technology. It's about understanding the business behind it.
Exactly. While knowing your RAM from your ROM is important, they emphasize that you also need a solid understanding of sales and marketing, customer service, administration, even economics and accounting.
It's a good reminder that this is, at its core, a business role. Yes, you need to be tech savvy, but you also need to understand how to sell that tech, manage a business, and deal with all the financial aspects that go along with that. It's about seeing the whole picture, how each part contributes to the overall success.
Precisely. It requires this well-rounded knowledge base that covers everything from supply chain management to market analysis to building those all-important customer relationships.
It's about seeing the forest for the trees, understanding how everything works together to create a successful business.
Exactly. And that's what makes this career path so interesting, challenging, and potentially incredibly rewarding.
And speaking of rewarding, I think it's time we talk about everyone's favorite topic, money. RoleCatcher lists high earning potential as a major pro for this career path. But is that just a fancy way of saying you might get lucky, but there are no guarantees?
Well, there are never any guarantees in life, are there? But the earning potential in this field is definitely there. And it makes sense when you think about it. You're dealing with high-value products, negotiating complex deals, and working in a market that's constantly in flux. That kind of expertise doesn't come cheap.
And thankfully, RoleCatcher backs that up with some hard data. They actually provide salary data in their guide, which is incredibly helpful for anyone who's seriously considering this career path.
They do. And while the specific numbers can vary depending on your experience level, your location, and the company you're looking at, even at entry level.
There, okay, so we've talked about staying on top of those ever-changing tech trends, but RoleCatcher highlights another crucial skill, and it's all about the human element. They really emphasize building and nurturing those relationships with both clients and suppliers.
Ah, that's where the art of the deal comes in, right? It's one thing to know the technical specs of a processor inside and out. It's another thing entirely to smooth things over with the supplier when a major shipment goes haywire. That's the real test.
It's like they say, it's not always what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
But in this case, it sounds like you need both. You need that deep technical knowledge, and the ability to build those strong, lasting relationships.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher actually poses this great interview question. Tell me about a time you had to deal with a very demanding client, someone who had unrealistic expectations. How did you handle that relationship? They're looking for someone who can walk that fine line between sticking up for their company and keeping the client happy.
Talk about a high-pressure situation. It takes some serious skill to navigate those waters, especially when you're dealing with big contracts and tight deadlines.
Oh, absolutely. And RoleCatcher offers some solid advice on handling those tricky interview questions. They recommend using specific examples, going back to that STAR method we talked about earlier. Don't just say, I'm a people person. Give them a real-life example of a time you turned a difficult client interaction into a win.
Okay, so paint me a picture here. Let's say a client is freaking out because their order of those new VR headsets is stuck in customs. Do you just give in to their demands, expedite the shipping, and eat the cost? Or do you find a more creative workaround?
Now you're thinking like a wholesale merchant. That's those problem-solving skills in action. And it's about showcasing those wins in an interview. Maybe you were able to negotiate a discount with a different supplier to make up for the delay. Maybe you even found a way to upsell the client on some additional software while you were at it.
Okay, now that's impressive. Turning a potential disaster into an opportunity, that's some next-level stuff. But let's be real, not every situation has a happy ending. Sometimes you have to deliver bad news, right?
Of course, RoleCatcher addresses that too. They talk about being transparent and honest even when it's tough. Like, imagine a key component for a product is back-ordered for months. There's no way to sugarcoat that.
No kidding. So how do you break that kind of news to a client who is really depending on those parts? Do you just send a quick email? Or do you pick up the phone, explain the situation clearly, and offer alternative solutions, even if they're not ideal?
Again, you're getting it. It's all about building that trust. You want them to know you're not just there to take orders, you're there to solve problems. Sometimes that means having those tough conversations, but you do it in a way that preserves the relationship.
This really highlights how much of this job relies on communication, both written and verbal. You have to be comfortable writing a persuasive email to a supplier 1 minute, and then turn around and give a presentation to a room full of potential clients the next.
Absolutely. RoleCatcher stresses how important those communication skills are. And it's not just about being a smooth talker. It's about being a good listener, reading between the lines, and understanding the needs and concerns of your clients and suppliers, even the ones they don't explicitly say.
And to do that well, you need a deep understanding not just of the technology itself, but of the business problems that technology is designed to solve, right?
Exactly. Imagine you're selling cloud computing services. You're not just talking about gigabytes and terabytes. You're explaining how that translates to real-world benefits for their business. Increased efficiency, reduced costs, maybe even a smaller environmental footprint if they're trying to be more sustainable.
Now you're speaking their language. It's not about the features, it's about what those features can do for them.
Exactly. And you know, RoleCatcher even provides some good tips on handling those curveball questions that interviewers like to throw your way. Like, how would you explain this incredibly complex piece of software to someone who isn't tech savvy?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's about making the complex understandable. Maybe using analogies or real-world examples. Like, think of this software as the air traffic control system for your company's data.
Now you've got their attention. It's about being a translator, someone who can bridge the gap between the intricate details of technology and the everyday needs of a business.
Okay, so we've established that communication is key. But what about the nuts and bolts of the job? The stuff that keeps everything running smoothly. RoleCatcher mentions pricing and inventory management as essential knowledge areas.
Ah, yes. This is where the rubber meets the road. You can't just understand the products, you have to understand the business behind them. We're talking about analyzing costs, setting prices that are competitive but still profitable, managing inventory levels so you're not caught with your pants down.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act. You want to be competitive with your pricing to attract clients, but you also don't want to cut your margins so thin that the company loses money. And then there's the whole challenge of forecasting demand, making sure you have enough product to meet your clients' needs, but not so much that you end up with a warehouse full of obsolete stuff.
It's a constant juggling act. Imagine a new graphics card is released and everyone's scrambling to get their hands on it. A good wholesale merchant will anticipate that demand, secure enough inventory to meet the needs of their clients, but also avoid ordering too much and being stuck with outdated tech a few months down the line.
High risk, high reward, it seems like. And we haven't even touched on the logistics of it all. Managing shipments, navigating supply chain disruptions, dealing with those inevitable last-minute order changes.
Right. This is not a career for the faint of heart. It's fast-paced, things are constantly changing. You have to be able to think on your feet.
Definitely sounds like you need a unique combination of skills. Business sense, technical knowledge, and a heavy dose of adaptability.
Absolutely. But for those who thrive in that environment, the rewards can be substantial, both financially and in terms of job satisfaction.
And speaking of rewards, RoleCatcher provides a really good breakdown of the potential salary expectations for this career path.
They do. And while the specific salary you can expect will vary based on your experience level, your location, the size of the company, it's clear that this is a field with the potential for a very comfortable lifestyle.
And for anyone who is feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this, RoleCatcher offers a tool that might be just what the doctor ordered, their career compass.
Oh, yes, the Career Compass. This is a fantastic resource for anyone who's feeling a little lost, a little unsure about which direction to take their career. It's like having a personalized roadmap guiding you towards a career path that aligns with your skills, your interests, and your goals.
It sounds like a game changer. So how does it actually work?
Well, it starts by asking you a bunch of questions. Your background, your skills, what you're interested in, what's important to you in a career, that sort of thing. It even asks about your preferred work environment.
Hmm.
Are you someone who thrives in a busy office setting, or do you prefer the flexibility of remote work?
It's like it's getting to know you, figuring out what makes you tick.
Exactly. And based on your answers, it generates this personalized list of career paths that align with your unique profile. And here's the really cool part. It doesn't just spit out a list of generic job titles. It gives you detailed information about each suggestion, including things like average salary expectations, the kind of education and experience you need, and even the job outlook for that field.
It's like a crystal ball for your career.
It's about as close as you're going to get. I really think it's a fantastic tool for anyone who is feeling stuck in a rut or even just curious about other opportunities that might be out there.
Whether you're a seasoned professional looking for a change or just starting out and not sure which path to take, it sounds like the RoleCatcher Career Compass is definitely worth a look. It could be the key to unlocking that dream career.
Absolutely. And speaking of dreams, I think it's important to remember that a career is about more than just a job. It's an expression of who you are, what you value, and the impact you want to make on the world.
That's such an important point. It's about finding work that lights you up, that gets you excited to get out of bed in the morning, even if it means facing a few challenges along the way.
Exactly. It's about being open to new experiences, embracing the unknown, and constantly learning and growing throughout your career.
Because the one thing we know for sure is that the world of work is constantly changing.
That's the truth. So be adaptable, embrace the change, and never stop learning.
Words to live by. Now, we've talked a lot about the specific skills, the knowledge base, and even the mindset you need to be successful as a wholesale merchant. But there's one more crucial aspect of the interview process that we need to address the dreaded behavioral questions.
Ah, yes, the behavioral questions, those are the ones that really trip people up because they're not about what you know or what you've done. They're about how you handle difficult situations, how you interact with other people, how you approach problem solving.
They're designed to give the interviewer a glimpse into your character, your values, your overall approach to work.
Precisely. And they often start with phrases like, tell me about a time when, or describe a situation where.
I'm getting nervous just thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So how can our listeners prepare for these curveballs?
Yeah.
How do you knock those behavioral questions out of the park?
Well, RoleCatcher provides some really solid strategies for tackling these types of questions, and one of the most effective strategies is, you guessed it, the STAR method.
I knew it. The STAR method is like that Swiss Army knife of interview prep. It
Yeah.
comes in handy for pretty much every situation.
It really does. It's such a clear, concise way to structure your answers so the interviewer can easily follow along, and it really helps you highlight your accomplishments.
And RoleCatcher provides some great examples of how to actually use the STAR method for common behavioral questions.
They do. For example, let's say the interviewer asks, describe a time you had to deal with a difficult coworker. How did you handle that situation?
That's a classic behavioral question.
It's one that a lot of people dread because talking about conflict, especially in a job interview, can be tricky. You don't want to come across as difficult yourself.
Right, and that's where the STAR method can be a lifesaver. It helps you tell the story in a way that's honest and professional. So using the STAR method, you'd start by describing the specific situation, who was involved, what the conflict was, what was at stake.
Then you'd explain the task at hand. What was your role in the situation, and what were you hoping to accomplish? Exactly. And then you lay out the specific actions you took to deal with the situation. How did you communicate with your coworker? Did you try to find some common ground? And how did you ultimately resolve the conflict?
And finally, you'd end by highlighting the positive results of your actions.
Mm.
Was the conflict resolved? Did the relationship improve? Did the team as a whole benefit from the way you handled the situation?
Exactly. The STAR method really helps showcase those problem-solving skills, your ability to work effectively with other people, and how you navigate those sometimes challenging interpersonal dynamics that are present in any workplace.
It's about turning those potentially awkward interview questions into opportunities to highlight your strengths and your accomplishments. Now, what about the other aspects of the interview that aren't directly related to the job itself? Things like what to wear, how to make a good first impression, how to follow up afterwards.
Those details are so important. They might seem small, but they can really make a difference in how you're perceived by the interviewer.
First impressions are everything. And so is professionalism. What does RoleCatcher have to say about those all-important, non-technical aspects of the interview process?
Well, they emphasize dressing appropriately for the company culture. What appropriately means can be different depending on the organization, so it's always a good idea to do your research.
Stalking their LinkedIn profiles for outfit inspiration. Check.
Exactly. But generally, it's always better to be slightly overdressed than underdressed.
I like to call it power dressing. Put on that outfit that makes you feel confident and ready to conquer the world, or at least conquer that interview.
I love that. And it's not just about the clothes. There are a few other small but impactful things you can do.
Like what? Give me the inside scoop.
Things like making eye contact with your interviewer, offering a firm handshake, being aware of your body language. You want to project confidence and enthusiasm, but also stay humble and respectful.
It's about finding that balance, being assertive but approachable.
Exactly. And don't forget to follow up afterwards. Sending a thank you note might seem like a small thing, but it goes a long way. It shows you appreciate their time and keeps you fresh in their mind.
Plus, it's a good opportunity to reiterate your interest in the position and mention anything you might have forgotten during the interview itself.
Precisely. That well-written thank you note could be the thing that gives you an edge over the competition.
And speaking of competition, one thing that RoleCatcher emphasizes throughout their guide is just how competitive the job market is, especially in a fast-paced, in-demand field like tech.
Absolutely. With the rise of e-commerce and the constant demand for the newest tech products, the competition for wholesale merchant roles is only going to increase.
So how can job seekers set themselves apart from the crowd? What can they do to increase their chances of landing their dream job in this cutthroat environment?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And luckily, RoleCatcher offers some excellent advice on how to stand out. One strategy they highlight is specialization.
We touched on that earlier. It's about becoming a real expert in a specific niche within the broader tech landscape.
You're exactly right. Instead of being a jack of all trades, consider focusing on a specific type of technology, a particular industry, even a certain geographic market.
Because that kind of specialized knowledge is really valuable to employers. It means you can jump right in and make a difference from day one.
Precisely. And it often translates to a higher salary and more leverage when you're negotiating your compensation package.
It's about becoming the go-to person, the expert in your chosen area.
Exactly. Another thing RoleCatcher emphasizes is building a strong online presence.
Of course. In the digital age, your online presence is often the first impression you make on a potential employer.
It's true. So make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and really highlights your skills and experience. You might even consider building a personal website or online portfolio to showcase your work. And don't underestimate the power of engaging in online communities that are relevant to your field. Share your insights, join discussions, connect with other professionals. It all helps.
It was about building your personal brand as a thought leader in your space.
You got it. And never underestimate the power of good old-fashioned networking. Go to industry events, make connections on LinkedIn, even reach out to people you admire for informational interviews. The more you expand your network, the more opportunities are going to come your way.
It's amazing how many people find their next job through their network.
It's not just about what you know, it's who you know. And finally, RoleCatcher really emphasizes the importance of continuous learning. In the tech world, if you're not constantly learning, you're falling behind.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. So make that commitment to always be learning and growing. Take online courses, go to webinars, read industry publications, listen to podcasts, whatever works for you.
There are so many resources available these days. It's incredible.
The possibilities for learning are endless, but the point is you have to be proactive. The tech landscape is always changing, so you have to be willing to change with it.
Because in the world of tech wholesale, knowledge truly is power. The more you know, the more valuable you become.
100%. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about one of the biggest trends that's shaking up the job market right now, the rise of artificial intelligence and automation.
AI, it's the topic on everyone's mind these days. It's exciting and a little terrifying at the same time.
No, right? Everyone's talking about it, and for good reason. It's changing how we live and work, and the wholesale industry is no exception.
So how is AI impacting the role of the wholesale merchant? Is it coming for their jobs?
That's what a lot of people are afraid of. But the reality is a little more nuanced than that. In a lot of ways, AI is actually making the job of a wholesale merchant easier.
Really? I have to admit, that's not what I was expecting to hear.
It's a common misconception, but AI is actually automating a lot of the more tedious and repetitive tasks that used to take up a lot of time for wholesale merchants.
Like what kind of tasks? Give me some examples.
Things like data entry, processing orders, managing inventory tasks that can now be handled by software with AI built in.
So instead of spending hours every day manually inputting data or tracking inventory, wholesale merchants can focus more on those big picture strategic tasks.
Exactly. Things like nurturing those client and supplier relationships, negotiating those complex deals, identifying emerging trends in the market.
It's like AI is freeing them up to be more creative and strategic, to focus more on the human element of the job.
You got it. And this is where RoleCatcher's perspective on AI is so interesting. They're not shying away from these new technologies, they're embracing them. They see AI as a tool that can make the entire job search process better for both job seekers and employers.
That's a really refreshing perspective. So how are they using AI to change the job search process for the better?
Well, we already talked about their AI-powered CV builder, which helps you create a standout CV that's tailored to the specific job you're going for.
It's like having a personal CV writer in your back pocket.
Right. But they're also using AI in other really innovative ways. For instance, their job matching algorithm analyzes your skills, experience, and what you're looking for in a job, and then matches you with relevant job openings that you might have never found on your own.
That's amazing. It's like having a personal recruiter working behind the scenes to find you the perfect job.
Exactly. And they're even using AI to offer personalized career advice and guidance.
Wow. So it's like having a career coach at your fingertips.
Exactly. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. As AI continues to evolve, I think we can expect to see even more innovative uses in the world of recruiting and career development.
It's definitely an exciting time to be in the job market. But with all this talk about AI and automation, I think it's important to remember that technology is just one piece of the puzzle. It can help us make things easier, but it can't replace those essential human skills like communication, collaboration, critical thinking.
You're absolutely right. If anything, those soft skills are more important now than ever. So yes, stay up to date with the technology, but don't neglect those human elements.
Because at the end of the day, it's that human connection, the ability to build relationships and connect with others that will help you stand out from the crowd and build a truly successful and fulfilling career.
Couldn't agree more. Now, we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we move on, I want to circle back to something we mentioned earlier, salary insights.
Right, because understanding what you're worth is so important, whether you're negotiating a new salary or just seeing what else is out there.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher offers some truly valuable salary insights. They can help you make sure you're being paid fairly for your skills and experience.
They really do. Their salary data is really impressive. They have information on thousands of job titles across all sorts of industries with breakdowns by experience level, location, even company size.
And they're constantly updating their data, making sure it reflects the current job market, so you can be confident that you're getting accurate information.
It's like having an insider's guide to salary expectations.
Exactly. It gives you the data you need to make informed decisions about your career and your earning potential.
So whether you're just starting your career journey or you're a seasoned professional looking for a change, it sounds like RoleCatcher salary insights are definitely worth checking out.
100%. They could be the key to unlocking your earning potential and making sure you're getting paid what you deserve. Now, let's switch gears for a moment and talk about something else that's becoming increasingly important in today's job market. The ability to articulate your value proposition.
Being able to clearly communicate your value is so important, especially in such a competitive job market. It's not enough to just have the skills and experience. You have to be able to sell yourself.
And that's something that a lot of people struggle with. They might be incredibly talented and have a ton of experience, but they have a hard time putting into words what makes them unique, what makes them stand out from the crowd.
It's like they're trying to sell a product without highlighting its best features.
You got it. And this is another area where RoleCatcher's insights and tools can be so helpful. They have a whole section dedicated to helping you craft a really strong value proposition.
That's fantastic. So what kind of advice do they give? What are their top tips?
Well, they really stress the importance of identifying your unique skills, your experiences, those accomplishments that make you stand out. It's about digging deep and figuring out what sets you apart from everyone else.
It's about knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, and being able to articulate what you bring to the table that no one else can.
Exactly. And it's not just about listing your skills on a resume. It's about telling a story of your career journey, how your skills and experiences have led you to this point, how they've prepared you for this particular role.
It's about crafting a narrative that showcases your value in a way that's authentic and compelling.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher actually provides some really helpful templates and frameworks to guide you through the process.
It's like having a personal branding expert in your corner.
Right. And they also stress the importance of tailoring your value proposition to the specific company and role you're targeting.
Of course. One size doesn't fit all when it comes to job hunting.
Exactly. You really need to do your homework. Understand the company's culture, what they value, what challenges they're facing. Then you position yourself and your skills in a way that shows them you understand their needs and that you're the perfect person to help them achieve their goals.
It's about showing them that you're not just another applicant. You're the solution to their problems.
You got it. And when you can do that effectively, your chances of landing the job increase exponentially.
It's about going from being just another face in the crowd to being the obvious choice.
Exactly. Speaking of obvious choices, let's talk about something else that's becoming increasingly important in today's job market. Cultural fit.
Oh, cultural fit. It's that intangible thing that can make or break your chances of landing a job.
It's so true. Companies are looking for people who not only have the right skills and experience, but who also mesh well with their company culture, their values.
It's about finding those people who just get it, who vibe with the company's overall personality and work style.
Exactly. And it's not just about them finding the right fit for their company culture. It's about you finding the right cultural fit for you.
It's a two-way street. You're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you.
100%. And RoleCatcher offers some really insightful advice on how to figure out the cultural fit, both during the application process and in the interview.
Okay, lay it on me. What are their top tips?
Well, first and foremost, they recommend doing your homework. Research the company's culture before you even submit your application. Check out their website, their mission statement, their social media. Get a feel for their personality, what's important to them.
It's like doing recon before a mission.
Exactly. Look for clues about their work environment, their management style, how they approach work-life balance.
And during the interview, don't be shy about asking questions about their company culture.
Absolutely. Ask about their team dynamic, their communication style, what they value.
It's about seeing whether or not you could actually see yourself thriving in that environment.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to share a bit about your own work style and what you value in a company culture.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your values and their values intersect.
You got it. And when you find that alignment, it can be magical.
It's like finding the missing piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. Now, speaking of puzzles, let's talk about one of the biggest challenges job seekers face today, navigating the ever-changing landscape of the job market.
It's true. The job market is constantly evolving. New technologies are popping up all the time. Industries are shifting. Job roles are being redefined. It's a lot to keep up with.
It can feel overwhelming. It makes you wonder how you're supposed to stay relevant, how you're supposed to make sure your skills are up to date.
It's a question that I think a lot of people struggle with.
It's a common concern, but the good news is there are things you can do to stay ahead of the curve.
Like what? Give us the secrets.
Well, one of the most important things is to embrace this mindset of continuous learning.
We've touched on this before, but it's worth repeating.
It really is. In today's world, if you're standing still, you're falling behind.
So true. So how can people actually integrate that idea of continuous learning into their lives? What does that look like?
There are so many ways. Take online courses, attend webinars, read industry publications, listen to podcasts. The possibilities are endless.
It's about staying curious, keeping yourself informed, always being on the lookout for new knowledge and skills.
You got it. And it doesn't have to be a chore. Find ways to make learning fun. Pick topics you're genuinely interested in and find learning resources that match your learning style.
Learning should be an adventure, not a chore.
Exactly. Another really important thing is to build a solid network of professional contacts.
We talked about networking earlier, but it's worth repeating. Your network is such a valuable resource, especially when it comes to learning about new job openings, staying up to date on industry trends, and finding out what new skills are in demand.
Absolutely. Make a point of going to industry events, connecting with people on LinkedIn, reaching out to people you admire for informational interviews. Put yourself out there and expand your professional circle.
Because you never know where that next opportunity might come from.
Exactly. Now, speaking of opportunities, I want to touch on one more important aspect of the job search, following up after an interview.
It's something that's so often overlooked, but that follow-up, especially a well-written thank you note, can make a real difference.
It really can. A thank you note is a small gesture, but it can have a big impact on the hiring manager.
So what are your top tips for writing a thank you note that stands out?
Well, first and foremost, make it personal. Don't just send a generic one-size-fits-all thank you. Take the time to personalize it for each person you interviewed with and for the specific role you applied for.
Show them that you were paying attention during the interview and that you genuinely appreciate their time.
Yes. And don't be afraid to reiterate your interest in the role. You can even use it as an opportunity to mention something you talked about during the interview that really resonated with you. It shows you were listening and that you're genuinely interested.
It's those little touches that can really make a difference.
Absolutely. Now, before we move on, I want to talk about something else that often gets overlooked during the job search. Self-care.
Oh, self-care. So important, especially during what can be a very stressful and emotionally draining time.
It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle, to get laser focused on the job hunt, that you forget to take care of yourself.
So what are your top tips for practicing self-care during a job search? What helps you stay sane?
First and foremost, be kind to yourself.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It really is. It's so easy to be your own worst critic, especially during a job search. But it's important to remember that rejection is normal. You're not going to get every job you apply for. Not every interview will lead to an offer.
And that's okay.
Exactly. It doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means it wasn't the right fit. So don't beat yourself up about it. Learn from the experience and move on.
Turn those setbacks into learning opportunities.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to step away from it all when you need to. Put down the laptop, get outside, spend time with people you care about, do something you enjoy. You can't pour from an empty cup.
So true. Take care of yourself, mentally and physically, and you'll be much better equipped to handle the ups and downs of the job hunt. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of the wholesale merchant, I keep coming back to one major theme: the importance of passion.
Passion. It's that intangible quality that can make all the difference.
It's what drives us, what fuels our determination, what pushes us to go the extra mile.
Exactly. And it's what makes work feel less like work and more like a calling.
So how can our listeners tap into their passions? How can they find a career path that truly lights them up?
I think it starts with taking a good hard look at yourself. Ask yourself those big questions. What am I truly passionate about? What makes me feel energized? What kind of impact do I want to make on the world?
Those are big questions, but they're important ones.
They really are. And once you have a better sense of what truly lights you,
You know, it's funny. We started this whole deep dive thinking wholesale merchant in computers. And somehow we ended up talking about the importance of human connection and being able to roll with the punches in this constantly evolving tech world.
I guess that's the beauty of a deep dive, right?
Hmm.
You start with a specific job title and end up uncovering these universal truths about what it takes to not just survive, but actually thrive in a world where everything is changing so fast.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. We started with the technical stuff and the sales quotas, but underneath it all, it's really about people, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's what RoleCatcher nails in their guide. It's not just about knowing the ins and outs of a CPU or the latest software. It's about understanding why someone would want to buy it. What problem are they trying to solve? What are they trying to achieve? And how can you, with your expertise, help them get there?
It's like being a tech therapist. They come to you overwhelmed by all the options, and you're there to guide them towards a solution that actually meets their needs, not just the one that makes the most profit.
Now you're getting it. That's what separates a good wholesale merchant from a great one, being able to really understand and empathize with the client's needs.
It's about building those long-term relationships based on trust and mutual benefit. It makes me think about those early adopters back in the 80s, the ones buying those first personal computers. I hope they had no idea what they were getting into.
Can you imagine being the wholesale merchant who helped those folks navigate that uncharted territory? You're not just selling them a clunky computer, you're opening up a whole new world of possibilities. That's got to be an amazing feeling.
Talk about being on the cutting edge. And today, that cutting edge might be AI-powered software or
Yeah.
sustainable technology or something we haven't even thought of yet.
Exactly. That's why I really connected with RoleCatcher's emphasis on continuous learning. You can't just coast in this industry. You have to be a lifelong learner, always curious, always pushing yourself to learn new things.
It's true what they say. The only constant is change. And in this industry, the pace of change is just mind-blowing.
No kidding. And for some people, that's exciting. They thrive on that constant challenge, that need to adapt and evolve.
But it's also okay if that constant hustle isn't for everyone. There's a place for everyone in the job market, a role that fits your personality, your skills, and your goals.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this whole deep dive. It's not just about becoming a wholesale merchant. It's about taking this information and using it to chart your own career path, whatever that looks like.
It's about asking yourself the big questions. What am I passionate about? What are my strengths? What kind of impact do I want to have on the world? And then using those answers as a compass.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to go it alone. Talk to mentors, connect with career counselors, use resources like RoleCatcher. There's a whole world of support out there if you know where to look.
Sometimes the best guidance comes from unexpected places.
For sure. Stay curious, be open to new possibilities, and keep learning. The world of work is vast and constantly evolving. The only real limit is your imagination.
I love that. This deep dive has been incredible. We've uncovered all these hidden complexities, explored the human side of tech, and learned so much.
It's been a pleasure joining you on this journey.
And to all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit life-changing.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep reaching for the stars.